Hey, good morning, y'all. I am studying the general what and why of different people in the Bible. And yesterday looked at Abraham. Today I'm looking at Moses and looking at what is the why of his life and what is the what of his life. And so we're looking at Exodus, really starting in chapter 2 and then kind of going through chapter 14, 15. So it's a pretty lengthy portion of scripture, but that's what details Moses' life. So we see that Moses' life was spared in the very beginning, and we have to wonder why? Why was Moses of all people spared? And I believe it's because God had a plan for his life, right? God had already tapped him for purpose. So when we make it through things that could have destroyed us, and we're asking ourselves, why did I make it and someone else didn't? Or why am I still here even though this should have taken me out? We have to remember that God must have a plan for us that has yet to be fulfilled. He must have us tapped for purpose, something specific that he has written into the future of our life to accomplish for his people. God had a plan for Moses, and Moses was raised. He was raised and he was privileged, yet he still had a heart for his people. And this passion for his people to see them treated fairly and not mistreated, he didn't quite know how to control it, and that led him to killing someone. And as a result of that, he fled to Midian, a different place. And we have to remember, we can take away that even though we may be passionate about something, we may have a heart for something, that does not mean we can just act on a whim before receiving instruction from the Lord. Our heart, our passions, our desires, they have to be submitted to God. They're not things that we should try to control and figure out ourselves. We should learn to act only in obedience to God and not in obedience to our flesh, even if the intention in our heart is pure or right. So Moses is 80 when God calls him and reveals his purpose, and Moses is doubtful and nervous about his ability to be used by God to do what God is asking him to do or telling him to do. And God reassures Moses. He gives him signs, right, to prove that he is the one who is to lead, that he did hear from God, that he is to be the leader. And God even allows Moses to have a little help in Aaron. And Moses' purpose is to set the Israelites free. So in doing so, Moses has to go back to a place he once fled. He has to endure seeing his people mistreated. He has to endure repeated no's and continue to trust in the instruction of the Lord. He has to deal with backtalk from the people. He has to make sure that he's operating fully in obedience to God, submitted to God's instruction. He can't try to figure out his own path or make his own way when he thinks things aren't working out right. He has to get the people to do what's necessary to save their own selves, their own lives. He has to lead a whole nation to what seems like a dead end in order for them to be saved. Moses was the leader. He is the one that God made responsible. And the why of it all is for God's people to be free, for them to be delivered, and to be able to enjoy the life, the abundant life, the good life that God had prepared in advance for them. And I think the whys are always going to be pretty similar, right? Abraham's why was that all nations may be blessed through him. Moses' why is so that God's people may be free and enter into this promised land, the life that God has for him. And I think it's good, right, that we see the similarities of the why, and I'm just thinking through other characters already and trying to figure out their why, and I already know that it's very similar, and I think that's encouraging and a call for us to make sure that our whys are also aligned. Who are we delivering? Who are we setting free? Who are we ushering into the promise of life that God has for all of us through how we're living, through our obedience to what God has called us to do? Who is going to be blessed through how we are living our life? We need to make sure that our lives are aligning with the why of the lives that God has placed on these other people, because it's the same why. God has the same intention, and he wants to use us to enact his will in this earth. So that means that as we're figuring out our why, it should line up, right? Because it's coming from the same person. And then we need to make sure that we're living in accordance to that purpose. You guys have a great day today. Bye, y'all.